Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the 2025 FHL Bank Pittsburgh Homebuyer Products webinar. I am Alexa Mascara, the manager of community products here, and I'll be the host for today's webinar. Before we get started, this webinar and the information included within is intended for Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh member financial institutions only. So if you're not a member, we do ask that you please close out of this webinar and refer to the FHL Bank website or firstfrontdoor.com for information regarding these and other programs. We encourage you to reach out to a participating lender for more information as well. Today, we will cover details about First Front Door and the Keys to Equity Fund programs. While this presentation will cover the high level components of the programs, the 2025 First Front Door product manual remains the core document that you should refer to for all additional details on First Front Door and Keys topics. This manual and all other relevant program information and a recording of today's webinar will be shared via email later this week. We also offer a full suite of recorded webinars, which are posted to our website. One of the last slides of this presentation will have the FHL Bank First Front Door web address and our contact information listed for your convenience. Before I introduce Fred Benuelos, this week the Office of Management and Budget, or the OMB, directed federal agencies to temporarily pause grants, loans, and other federal financial assistance. As a result, the federal home loan banks have received inquiries from members and community stakeholders about our community product availability and funding. The FHL banks are government sponsored enterprises or GSEs, and as such are not subject to this directive. FHL Bank Pittsburgh will offer the 2025 community investment products as announced. We will keep our membership and community stakeholders informed of any new developments impacting product availability or funding changes should they occur. I'd now like to introduce Fred Benuelos, Business Development Manager, who will cover some housekeeping items and review some information on the Federal Home Loan Bank System overview.
Thank you, Alexa. Again, my name is Fred Benuelos, and I'd like to introduce you to the banking staff we have with us today. So today in the meeting is Tom Westerlin, Vince Moy, Fred Duncan, Larissa Vishovic, John Bendel, Kate Swanson, Adia Robinson, and Melinda Ward. So before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. The link will be circulated to all registrants within a week. Also, if you have any questions during the session, please enter them in the Zoom question box feature. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And if there are any questions that aren't being able to answer on this presentation, we will follow up with you. So today's presentation is intended to cover high-level components of First Front Door and the Keys to Equity Fund. It's a great review for seasoned users, and if you're new this year, we hope you can learn about how you can incorporate First Front Door and the Keys product to support your mortgage products. During today's webinar, we will cover the items listed on the slide. Like in past webinars, we will cover eligibility, how to apply, and finish up with round information and next steps to help you prepare for this year. Before we dive into First Front Door and Keys, I'd like to give some background information on the Federal Home Loan Bank system. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh is one of 11 banks established under the Federal Home Loan Bank Act of 1932. Our purpose is to increase the availability of credit for residential mortgage lending, as well as investment in housing and community development. Each Federal Home Loan Bank is independently owned and operated, privately capitalized, and organized as cooperatives. The Federal Home Loan Bank system is comprised of roughly 7,000 member institutions nationally, and we are at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh serve approximately 300 members chartered in our district of Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Our members borrow from the Federal Home Loan Bank when they need liquidity, and through this lending to our members, we generate earnings, some of which are used to fund our community investment products. All of our products are funded solely by the activity of our members and do not use any tax dollars. We are talking about First Front Door and Keys today, but I would also like to take a minute to review the other community products available to members in 2025. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to someone on our team to connect further. The products on the left are mandated by statute. The products on the right are considered voluntary and are approved by our board of directors. As members of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh, you have access to all of these products. The first program I'd like to mention is our Affordable Housing Program, or AHP. The Federal Home Loan Bank is required by statute to contribute 10% of its net earnings annually to fund AHP. AHP provides grants of up to $1.5 million for affordable housing development through a competitive application process. Next, the Community Lending Program provides low-cost advances to our members to support economic development, such as financing for small businesses, infrastructure, and community development projects located in low to moderate income census tracts. Moving over to our voluntary products, Banking on Business and Banking on Business Inclusion and Equity Fund provides secondary loans to small businesses to spur economic development. Home for Good provides grants for projects, programs, and activities that support those who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Funding is provided by the Federal Home Loan Bank and our 3 state housing finance agencies. Blueprint Communities is a program that provides local leaders the tools to develop a long-term revitalization strategy for their communities. And lastly, the Voluntary Housing Grant Initiative provides additional funding to address affordable housing needs in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. More information on our community products can be found on our website, or if you'd like to discuss, please contact us. So before Alexa begins, I would like to remind everyone that this session is being recorded. The link will be circulated to all registrants within a week. Also, if you have any questions during the session, please enter them in the Zoom question box feature. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If there are any questions that we can't answer, like I said before on this presentation, we will follow up afterwards with you. So I'll hand it over to Alexa.
Thank you, Fred. So First Front Door, or FFD, provides first-time homebuyers with grants to go towards the down payment and closing costs of purchasing their first home. To qualify for the program, First Front Door homebuyers must be at or below 80% of the area median income as published by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, on an annual basis. Under the FFD product, when a homebuyer contributes a minimum of $1,500 of their own funds into the deal, they are eligible for a $15,000 grant. We know that for most households, paying the monthly mortgage is not the hurdle to homeownership, but instead it's saving enough money for the closing costs that prohibits a lot of families from purchasing. Being approved for an FFD grant gives these families the security of an extra $15,000 while they search for their first home. In addition, you, the member, will provide the first mortgage financing for these homebuyers. To be qualified for the First Front Door program, the homebuyer must meet certain qualifications. First, they must be considered a first-time homebuyer. That full definition is located within our First Front Door program manual. Second, they must be income qualified. The total household income must be 80% or less of the HUD area median income adjusted for family size. So one thing to note here is that FFD considers the total household income, not just the income of the borrowers. So live-in partners or extended family, in-laws, anyone living in the new home all count in that income calculation. This is one specific place that First Front Door calculates income differently than most underwriting processes. In addition, the HUD income limit that we use is the county or state for which they currently reside, not where they plan to purchase a home. More information on income limits and guidelines can be found on our income requirement webinar. Third, the homebuyer must purchase an eligible property. These properties cannot be investment properties or unsecured mobile homes. For example, if the borrower plans on purchasing a duplex with the intention to rent the other side, First Front Door funds are not allowed. Buyers can purchase one unit, but not the entire duplex if the intention is for investment. Prior to settlement, the homebuyer must complete homeownership counseling provided by an approved agency. That list of approved counseling agencies is on our website, and there are both in-person trainings as well as online. FHL Bank does not offer that counseling. Home buyers also need to have some stake in the game, so the home buyer contribution must be required. Borrowers need to contribute a minimum of $1,500 of their own funds in the deal in order to be eligible for the $15,000 grant, excuse me. And the same as in prior years, that contribution can come from items paid outside of closing, hand money deposits, gift funds, and any other funds that they bring to closing. Seller's assistance, member credits, gifts of equity, and other grants are not counted as part of the homebuyer contribution. FHL Bank does not layer on any additional underwriting requirements, such as living or buying in Pennsylvania, Delaware, or West Virginia, specific credit scores or LTV ratios, or asset amounts. And finally, new for 2025, borrowers will be required to be pre approved or pre qualified for a mortgage through the member who is submitting the reservation. We will be covering this more in detail later, so please hold your questions until then. Next, we'll be covering the KEYS program. FHL Bank is committed to diversity and inclusion at every level and in all of its business activities, and as such, the First Front Door Keys to Equity Fund, or KEYS, was created in 2024. KEYS is a voluntary program of FHL Bank that provides down payment and closing cost assistance to first-time minority homebuyers and first-time first-generation homebuyers. KEYS is structured like First Front Door, so the program is offered through participating FHL Bank members that provide the first mortgage financing. The portion of KEYS that benefits first-time minority homebuyers is established as a Special Purpose Credit Program, or an SPCP, in accordance with Regulation B of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Special purpose credit programs allow lenders to maintain programs that offer special benefits to people who share common characteristics, such as race or sex. Special purpose credit programs are explicitly authorized by the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, which otherwise generally prohibits offering different terms based on such characteristics. The next slide covers the home buyer qualifications for KEYS, and as you'll see, other than a few major items, the program will be structurally similar to First Front Door. First, the program is only offered to individuals who are first-time homebuyers and who also identify as a minority and/or a first-generation homebuyer. The definitions of both of these will be covered on the next slide. Borrowers will self-identify using an FHL Bank self-certification form, which will be provided to us at reservation. Additionally, the program serves households who make up to 120% of the area median income as defined by HUD. The income qualification process will be the same. We will qualify the entire household using the same income documentation and income workbook as First Front Door, but it will go up to 120% AMI. This change in income could open up your institution to a new market of buyers. As mentioned, we will be using the HUD income limits for KEYS, but it'll go up to 120%, and those income training materials will be posted to our website and provided in an email later this week. The next enhanced benefit for KEYS participants are the homebuyer contribution, which is a minimum of $1,000 instead of $1,500 for a maximum grant of $20,000. Since KEYS was designed as a voluntary program, no real estate retention document is required to be executed. Because there is no retention, there's also no repayment requirement for the grant. Similar to First Front Door, new for 2025, borrowers will be required to be pre-approved or pre-qualified for a mortgage through the member who is submitting the reservation. This next slide has the full KEYS definitions of minority and first-generation homebuyer. And I'll pause here for a moment, but I do want to note that borrowers only need to meet one of these definitions for eligibility. This slide covers do's and don'ts for members who are signed up for KEYS. Many of these come from the written plan of the regulation, which defines how special purpose credit programs can be implemented. Do clearly inform your borrower that the information is being collected to determine eligibility for KEYS and for no other purpose. Do communicate the enhanced benefits to your borrowers. Do save your signed member agreement and written plan for CRA examiners if you're planning to seek a CRA credit. but do not discuss Keys eligibility with potential borrowers until your institution has signed and returned the Keys member participation agreement. Do not ask which minority group a borrower belongs to if they identify as one. Our definition of minority includes all racial and ethnic minorities. Do not second guess or question self identification. Do not base eligibility determinations on visual observation or surname. And do not ask an applicant if they are a member of a different protected class. For example, don't ask questions about the borrower's religion. Members who are interested in participating in Keys should first verify their FFD enrollment status. If your institution is not enrolled, please complete those forms, which can be found on our website. Once enrolled in First Front Door, you can then reach out to us and request the Keys member participation agreement. If your institution is already enrolled in First Front Door, you do not need to enroll again. You can reach out to us using the First Front Door email to request that participation agreement. The Keys member participation agreement can be completed prior to the round or during an open round, but must be first completed before you can offer the program and submit reservation for Keys approval. Like FFD enrollment, by signing the participation agreement, it does not obligate you to use the program. The next slide covers how the programs work, and for most of you who are familiar with First Front Door, this process will not be changing. First, as mentioned, confirm that your institution is enrolled in First Front Door. If you're not, those application materials are on our website. This is a one-time enrollment, so once you enroll in the program, you do not need to re-enroll every year. Once the First Front Door or Keys rounds open, members can submit their homebuyer applications or reservations through the FFD online system. This is an online platform that we created specifically for First Front Door files that you'll need access to in order to participate. Within 15 business days of a completed reservation request, FHL Bank will let you know if the homeowner received an approved grant reservation or if more information is needed. Reservations are good for 180 days. So in that time, the homeowner will secure a mortgage with your institution, find a single family home for purchase, complete the required homeownership counseling, and close on the property. At settlement, you, the member, will advance the funds for the grant. Also within that 100-day window, the member will also request reimbursement for the grant by submitting the required documents through First Front Door Online in a disbursement request. The next few slides will cover what is required of you, the member, in the transaction. So let's assume that your borrower has been approved for a First Front Door Keys grant. Once they have an eligible reservation, they have 180 days to find and close on their home. When it's time for settlement, the member has a few requirements that need to be met prior to a successful funding. First, since this program is offered to you, our members, you also need to have some stake in the game. You are required to provide the first mortgage financing for the borrower. However, if your institution works with an affiliated mortgage broker who closes your loans, please reach out to us to discuss the possibility of a cooperation agreement. You will also be required to provide an additional concession to the borrower. This concession is some form of tangible and measurable financial contributions given to the borrower at closing. Acceptable concessions can include, but are not limited to, waived or reduced fees, lender credits, or reduced interest rates. Also, it's your responsibility to both provide the grant at closing and to ensure that the borrower met their contribution requirement prior to providing them that grant. If the contribution is not enough to meet the grant they were given, there is a chance that your institution could be out some money. The First Front Door product manual outlines acceptable homebuyer contributions and what that calculation is, but please remember that any cash back to the borrower gets removed from the homebuyer contribution calculation. Additionally, any cash back to the borrower over $250 is a regulatory violation. Regardless of how any other grant programs might work, if you're also using First Front Door or Keys, this regulation cannot be violated. Any cash back to the borrower at closing over $250 must be applied as a principal curtailment. And finally, ensure that each First Front Door recipient signs the First Front Door real estate retention agreement at settlement. This is a required 5-year retention agreement containing specific language to secure the FFD subsidy for each home buyer. As stated before, this is only applicable to the First Front Door program. The document can be found in the First Front Door product manual, on the product website, and at the bottom of the First Front Door online system. There is only one version currently accepted, and it has not changed since last year. In regards to the member requirements surrounding that First Front Door real estate retention agreement, there are a few items within the document that I want to point out. First, it is the member's responsibility to satisfy and release any agreements after the 5-year retention period is over. While the most current version of the retention document contains specific language that automatically expires the document after the 5 years are up, please be advised that some counties will still require your institution to satisfy the document manually. While the agreement requires the borrower to stay in the home for 5 years, we know that these are real people with real lives, and sometimes they sell or refinance prior to those 5 years. When that happens, FHL Bank will need to be notified as a potential repayment could be due or a subordination required. In a lot of cases, FHL Bank is notified of the sale or refinance directly from the borrower or title company and not from the member. When this happens, we do loop in contacts from the member organization to make sure that everyone is on the same page. There is a repayment request form that needs to be completed by you and some information needed from the new lender or closing company, and then FHL Bank can complete the repayment calculation. So I am sure there are plenty of questions that came in while I covered all of those slides, but I want to let the group know that we do have a rather extensive FAQ document, which will be circulated later this week with the rest of the 2025 program materials. Before we get into the information about the 2025 rounds, I want to pause for a moment to give Tom Westerlund, Business Development Manager, a moment to speak about the benefits of using First Front Door and Keys within your organization.
Thanks, Alexa. Thank you all for attending today. Last year, First Front Door and Keys to Equity programs awarded funds to about 2,000 first-time homebuyers through our member institutions. Since the program started in 1996, First Front Door has helped over 20,000 first-time homebuyers, funding over $100 million. Many of you who are on the webinar are the reason for this tremendous impact. So we thank you for your past participation and look forward to your use this year. So we're about 45 days away from the Keys round opening on March 18th and a couple of months away from First Front Door opening on April 22nd. Therefore, I just wanted to offer the following thoughts to encourage your continued participation. First, I will address how First Front Door and Keys were designed to assist first-time homebuyers with what is often the greatest challenge with buying a home, which is the down payment and closing cost assistance. But now in recent times, mortgage affordability has become more expensive due to the rise in mortgage rates and low inventory. So now is a great time to utilize these programs for the first-time homebuyers, as every dollar of assistance helps make a big difference. Second, First Front Door and Keys programs continue to be easy to use, and it provides time for the financial institutions to qualify eligible borrowers to obtain a reservation towards obtaining a mortgage. Although the funds are only available on first come and first served basis, members with qualified borrowers can access the program while funds last and hold a reservation. Third, a good number of our members use these programs in conjunction with their own in-house or alternative first-time homebuyer programs. Complementing programs provides many institutions flexibility in their approach to their local market. Fourth, Keys possibly opens a new market to you because the income qualifications are up to 120%, whereas First Front Door is up to 80%. And lastly, enrollment is very easy. So if you haven't already enrolled, please reach out to Alexa and the team to enroll and to ask for any technical assistance related to these programs. So First Front Door and Keys helps make the mortgage more affordable, and sometimes it's the difference maker. It's easy to use and very easy to enroll. We look forward to working with you. Now, Fred, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Tom. And on top of the benefits that Tom just mentioned, we noticed that over the years, First Front Door has provided several benefits to our participating members that we would like you to take advantage of as well. Some examples include stronger banking relationships with first-time homebuyers, improved market competitiveness, potential CRA credit opportunities, and enhanced mortgage product offering. So now back to Alexa.
Thanks, Fred. So now to the good stuff. I think this is probably what everybody's been waiting for. So first and foremost, as mentioned, within a week or so, we will be sending an email to First Front Door users and webinar registrants with the 2025 FFD and Keys product manual, the Keys FAQ document, links to the webinar recording, and other good program materials for the year. So the 2025 Keys funding round will open on March 18th, and the First Front Door funding round will open on April 22nd. For both of these rounds, you can submit files as soon as the First Front Door online system opens that day, which is 6 a.m. For both programs, all applications are submitted and reviewed within the First Front Door online system on a first come, first served basis. Because the programs are so competitive, we have to review these files in order that they were submitted to us, so please schedule your closings accordingly. We are not yet able to communicate the funding amounts available for either program, but will be able to do so in late February, and we will communicate those amounts via email. I want to note a few more important changes for 2025. So we acknowledge that some members had difficulty accessing the system and processing their home buyers in 2024. Not only have we taken internal steps with our technical team to prepare the FFD online system, but we've also made the following program changes to account for the high volume rounds that we're currently experiencing. As mentioned, we'll be staggering the openings of First Front Door and Keys in an effort to reduce your administrative burden. Our hope is that for members who will be submitting borrowers for both programs, having Keys open first will reduce any confusion and duplicate entries between the rounds. Additionally, there is a good chance that you'll know if your borrower is approved for Keys before FFD even opens. Second, I want to touch base on member limits. Due to the competitiveness of the funding rounds, in 2025, we will be reducing the First Front Door member cap from 15% to 10% and instituting it at 10% for the Keys program. This is 10% of each program's respective allocations, not combined. This cap is also based on approvals, not how many files are submitted to us. So once we approve that final file that takes you to the limit, no other activity will be accepted or reviewed by us. Our team will try our best to notify members who are reaching their limit, but please keep an eye on your First Front Door dashboard, which always shows the allocation your institution has remaining. Additionally, in an effort to continue to improve our customer experience, we're also adjusting our processing time from 10 business days to 15 business days. Within those 15 business days of a complete submission, you'll be notified of an approval, denial, or request for more information. We've adjusted this time frame to allow our reviewers more time to make thorough and thoughtful decisions on borrower files. Finally, in terms of clarifications, we are asking members to respond to all clarifications within 15 days and provide the information that was requested back to us. If the clarification is not addressed and submitted back to us within those 15 days, FHL Bank reserves the right to withdraw the application. If an application is withdrawn, we cannot reverse that status. So please make sure you're only requesting withdrawals on files that are no longer needed. If you need to adjust data within the file, maybe you need to add a new borrower or change income documentation, please do not withdraw the application. Instead, reach out to us and we can send the existing file back for clarification. As mentioned, once a file is withdrawn, it cannot be reversed. So the only way to have an active reservation again is to request a new one. This can only be done if the rounds are still open, and even then, there's no guarantee that funds will still be available for your borrower. All communications on your file's status changes happen via email, so please monitor that accordingly. There is a page in each of the reservation and disbursement modules that allows you to select other individuals from your institution to receive these emails, and we suggest you always add more than yourself to these files. And finally, probably the biggest change for 2025, we are now requiring all home buyers to be pre-approved or pre-qualified at the time of reservation. We understand that these words can mean different things to your institution, and some lenders have a formal pre-approval and others only pre-qualify. What we are looking for is a letter or document that states the borrower names and proof that your institution is willing to lend to them. We do not need a mortgage or a payment amount listed. But with this change, we want to make sure that the borrowers submitted for First Front Door and Keys have a high likelihood of home buying and using their grant. At reservation, there will now be a new upload feature on the income screen that will ask you for that pre-approval or pre-qualification proof. This documentation should be valid at the time of reservation approval. So if your approval is good for 90 days and that date has passed, please make sure to provide updated materials. Please refer to the First Front Door Program Manual for additional information. If you're unsure if what your institution provides would meet our criteria, please email the First Front Door inbox an example of what you provide so we can review it. This next slide covers some reminders for the 2025 funding round. First, as stated before, the FFD Real Estate Retention Agreement has not changed since 2024. Second, please use a new income workbook downloaded from our website or from the FFD online system for all new 2025 reservations. Please do not use versions from previous rounds that you edit and resave. Although the system will accept multiple variations of Excel workbooks, we've come to understand that saving over previous versions can disrupt the code and cause the workbook not to load properly. If you have any issues during your upload, there is a help document located within the FFD online system that you should reference before reaching out to First Front Door staff. This document includes helpful tips to check it to ensure that the income workbook is correct. And finally, as mentioned before, we're not able to announce the First Front Door and Keys allocations until after the bank announces its formal earnings in late February. But we will be sharing a recording of today's webinar and the updated program materials, including the manual, within a few days. So, what can you do now to get prepared for the upcoming rounds? First, if you're not yet enrolled, the paperwork should be completed. If you're interested in participating in Keys, you'll need to reach out to us directly for that agreement. It is not a public document. Once enrolled, please make sure you are testing your logins. If you haven't been in the system since last funding round, there is a chance you will be locked out and need your password reset. Second, you can begin to market your First Front Door or Keys program availability. We have marketing material templates on our website that you can customize and print out. Please note that some of the Keys information is for our member partners only and should not be shared outside of your institution. Those documents will have disclosures on them to call attention to the private nature of the materials. I also suggest that any new First Front Door or Keys user practices how to complete the FFD income workbook before the round opens. Also, it would be useful to create partnerships in your communities. Two useful agencies to start with are your local homeownership counseling agencies and local realtors. This is especially important to members who want to use the program but are not seeing the customer base that meet FFD or Keys standards. Partnering can help generate new customers. And finally, take advantage of the tools on our website and technical assistance available to you. Let us know how we can help you be successful with these programs. This slide contains our contact information, so I'll pause here for a moment before we jump into questions and answers. You can always reach out to Fred and Megan, who are the Community Investment Business Development Managers, with questions or to set up a training for your institution. Or you can reach out to your institution's primary business development managers, Tom, Fred, Larissa, or Vince, to get started. When in doubt, please feel free to contact the First Front Door email, which is listed under my name. So as mentioned, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A box, and we will take a minute to gather those questions. If we don't get to your question today, I will follow up directly with you via email as soon as possible.
Hi, Alexa. So we already have a number of questions.
Okay.
To begin, can FFD and keys be used in states outside of the bank's district of Delaware, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia?
Yes, we have no limitations on where the borrowers need to be currently living or where they need to purchase the new home. As long as they're coming to your institution for the first mortgage, they can live or purchase anywhere and use First Front Door or keys.
Can the FFD and keys grants be stacked with other grants?
Yes, so they cannot be stacked together. Borrowers can either use First Rent Door or keys, but borrowers are definitely welcome to use other grant programs in addition to the First Rent Door or keys grant, as long as the program parameters of First Front Door or keys are not violated. So one of the big ones there is that 250 cash back. I know that there are some grant programs out there that allow borrowers to receive a large sum of their initial down deposit back at closing. That is not allowed. So anything over that 250 would have to be applied as a principal curtailment.
Thank you. As you know, the market right now is very competitive. Is there any sort of penalty to a lender if a FFD grant is secured, but it goes unused?
There is not. Obviously, there is no guarantee that any home buyer is going to find and close on a home right now in this market. That's the one nice thing about the First Front Door and Keys grants. There is no obligation to use once they're reserved. Having one of those grants reserved is really the security for your home buyer.
Thank you. I have two questions related to the income workbook. Number one, when will that workbook be available? And number two, is there going to be additional training on how to fill out the workbook?
The workbook is currently available. There is a version on our website. There is also a version in the system itself. If you're able to get into the system, it's down at the bottom. Just to let everybody know, the versions that are accepted are .xls, .xlsx, and .xlsm. I think I got that right. It's a lot of letters. So it is on the website. It is in the FFD online system already that you guys can start pulling down and completing. And we do have an income workbook training webinar listed on the bank website as well. So please take a look at that.
If there are two borrowers, do both of them need to be first-time borrowers?
Our full definition of first-time home buyer is listed in the program manual. So please refer to that. If you have a specific question on what your household composition looks like, please reach out to us. But please check that definition first.
We also have a couple questions related to the Keys participation agreement. If that has already been signed, does another one need to be executed for 2025?
It does not. Very similar to First Front Door. Once you are enrolled in either First Front Door or Keys, you do not need to re-enroll again.
If members would like to make sure that they're staying informed about the balance of funds remaining, how should they best do that?
Everybody's dashboard, the dashboard that you see when you first log into the system, will have all of the updated amounts of the allocation, including your specific institution's member limits. So you can check all of that information at any point in time.
Thank you. This is an eligibility question for first-time home buyers. Do members need to take into account what the assets are of the household?
We do not need to look at any asset size for First Front Door or Keys purposes. We don't lay on any additional underwriting criteria like asset size or LTV ratios. So if that's something that your institution needs to review, then that's fine with us, but there's no requirements from our side.
Thank you, Alexa. And can you describe what marketing materials are available to members and where they might be able to find them?
Absolutely. So on our bank website, which is I think it was listed on a previous slide here. But on the First Front Door website, towards the bottom, there is a marketing material section. There are a couple of different pieces of materials, one that you can print and post within your organization, another one that can be for home buyers. And those could be modified to put your logo we're absolutely can rebrand any of those documents as your institution needs. I will make sure that a link to the marketing materials is also in our follow up email that we send.
Thank you. So there have been a few questions relating to the funding pool for Keys and then First Front Door. Can you just first confirm for everybody that those are separate pools of funding? So if, to confirm, that means if we do run out of Keys funding before FFD opens, the FFD amount available will remain unchanged because those are separate pools. But Alexa, there's another question related to borrowers being submitted. So if a member had submitted a Keys reservation and then that program runs out of money and that borrower does not receive an eligible reservation, will that automatically be moved forward to First Front Door, or do they need to resubmit?
Good questions, Kate. So these are unique funding amounts, unique funding pools. They will be separate and distinct. In addition to that, the 10% member cap is also separate and distinct. So each member has the ability to use up to 10% of Keys and up to 10% of First Front Door. If you submit a home buyer or home buyers for Keys and either they are ineligible or they did not receive funds because that allocation depleted before we got to your home buyer file, you will have to, as long as they meet the criteria for First Front Door, you will have to resubmit them under the First Front Door program once that round opens.
Thank you, Alexa. There are certainly a lot more questions to answer, but at this point, I think we can handle those offline.
Thank you, Kate. I thought so. I can see the questions ticking up here. So as mentioned before, if we did not get to your question today, I will be following up as soon as possible to answer those. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. It's probably preferable right now to reach out via email because I know that there will be lots of questions. Doing it via email, I have a full team who can help answer those questions. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Looking forward to another great or two more great funding rounds in 2025.